Act 1, Scene 3 of Macbeth. I have the text pulled up in ActivelyLearn. You have a question at the top to answer about whether or not you think Macbeth will willingly take a reward from the king based on what you know of him so far. And we are going to be using the Folgers Shakespeare scene-by-scene recording, which I'll share a link with you guys so you have it, for Act 1, Scene 3. I'll be stopping every so often to explain some of the things happening in the scene and go through the questions with you. So here we go. Act 1, Scene 3.
Where hast thou been, sister? Killing swine.
Sister, where thou?
A sailor's wife had chestnuts in her lap, and munched and munched and munched. Give me, quoth I. All right, thee witch, the rump-fed runion cries. Her husband's to Aleppo gone, master of the tiger, but in a sieve I'll thither sail, and like a rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll do. I'll give thee a wind, the kind.
And I another.
I myself have all the other, and the very ports they blow. Oh, the quarters that they know in a shipman's cart. I'll drain him dry as hay. Sleep shall neither night nor day hang upon his penthouse lid. He shall live a man forbid. Weary 7 nights, 9 times 9 shall he dwindle, peak and pine. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest tossed. Look what I have. Show me. Here I have a pilot's thumb, racked as homeward he did come.
So what we have here at the beginning of Act 1, Scene 3 is a conversation between the 3 witches. And there's a couple important things to take away from this. One, they are super, super petty. The first witch decides to terrorize a woman's husband because the woman won't share chestnuts with her, which seems like not the best reason to torture and murder a person. But we also learn that they are able to control nature, because when the witch starts talking about how she's going to get on this ship, the tiger, and terrorize this man, not allow him to sleep, the second and third witches offer to give her a wind. And what that tells us is that these witches can control nature in certain ways. And we'll want to keep that in mind as the play goes on, that they do in fact have some supernatural powers. Now, we are just about to get to be reintroduced to the idea of Macbeth, but we are actually going to meet him for the first time. So we were introduced to him in Scene 2 by the captain discussing the battle itself, and then Ross, who comes in and gives us a little more information about how Macbeth has been fighting. But in this scene, we are actually going to get to meet Macbeth and Banquo. So let's keep going.
A drum, Macbeth doth come.
The weird sisters hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus do go about, thrice to thine, and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9. Peace, the charms wound up.
So foul and fair a day I have not seen.
Now, take a moment and answer your question here after the witches speak about what they've been doing, what inferences can we make about their motives. But before we get into this scene, just notice Macbeth's opening line, the first thing we actually hear him say is, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." And I'm hoping that that line sounds a little bit familiar to you, because it's similar to what the witches say at the very end of Act 1, Scene 1, where they say fair is foul and foul is fair. So he's using that same phrasing as the witches. They're going to see the witches, and Banquo is going to be very confused. We really like Banquo. He's the smart one of this friendship. Macbeth is not so smart.
A forest called a forest. What are these? So withered and so wild in their attire that look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are aught. Live you? Or are you aught that man may question? You seem to understand me, by each at once her choppy finger laying upon her skinny lips. You should be women, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so.
Speak, if you can. What are you?
All hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis! All hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor!
All hail Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter.
So here we have the three predictions, the prophecies that the witches make at the very opening of the play. The first thing they say to him is, "Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis," which is his current title. That's the area that he is sort of the lord of. That's a title he already has. The second witch says, "Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor," which is what we know from scene 2, the title that Duncan is going to present to him, which is why I asked you to consider, well, where are the witches for scene 2? And then finally, the third thing the third witch says is, "All hail Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter," aka hail Macbeth, who is eventually going to become king. And Banquo is going to be a little confused because Macbeth is going to look upset by this news. He's not going to look as excited as Banquo thinks he should. And then Banquo is going to demand to know his future as well.
Good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair? In the name of truth, are you fantastical, or that indeed which outwardly you show? My noble partner you greet with present grace and great prediction, of noble having and of royal hope that he seems rapt withal. To me you speak not. If you can look into the seeds of time, and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate.
Hail! Hail!
Hail!
Lesser than Macbeth, and greater. Not so happy, yet much happier.
Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So all hail Macbeth and Banquo.
Banquo and Macbeth, all hail!
Now, the three predictions Banquo receives are very, very different. The first one is lesser than Macbeth and greater. So there we have those contradicting ideas, fair versus foul, battles lost and won. He will be less than Macbeth, but also greater than Macbeth. The second witch says not so happy, yet much happier, which again feels like a contradiction. It feels like those two things don't really go together. And then finally, thou shalt get kings, though thou be none, which is defined over here for you. But what that means is that Banquo's children will become king, and their children and all the way down the line, but Banquo will not be king. So, who has the better predictions? Now, the witches are going to attempt to leave, and Macbeth, being the way that he is going to be very demanding about it. But at the end, when they vanish, you're going to be asked, how do you think Macbeth and Banquo feel here? So keep that in mind.
Stay! You imperfect speakers, tell me more. By Sinel's death, I know I am Thane of Glamis, but how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief, no more than to be Cawdor. Say from whence you owe this strange intelligence, or why upon this blasted heath you stop our way with such prophetic greeting. Speak, I charge you.
The earth hath bubbles, as the water has, and these are of them. Whither are they vanished?
Into the air. And what seemed corporal melted as breath into the wind. Would they had stayed?
Were such things here as we do speak about? Or have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner?
Your children shall be kings.
You shall be king.
And Thane of Cawdor too, and it not so.
The self-same tune and words. Who's here?
The king hath happily received, Macbeth, the news of thy success. And when he reads thy personal venture in the rebels' fight, his wonders and his praises do contend which should be thine or his. Silence with that. In viewing o'er the rest the self-same day, he finds thee in the stout Norwegian ranks, nothing afeard of what thyself didst make, strange images of death. As thick as tale came post with post. Every one did bear thy praises in his kingdom's great defense, and poured them down before him.
We are sent to give thee from our royal master thanks, only to herald thee into his sight, not pay thee.
And for an earnest of a greater honor, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which edition, hail, most worthy Thane, for it is thine.
What, can the devil speak true?
The Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? Who was the Thane lives yet, but under heavy judgment bears that life which he deserves to lose. Whether he was combined with those of Norway, or did line the rebel with hidden help and vantage, or that with both he labored in his country's wrack, I know not. But treason's capital, confessed and proved, have overthrown him. Glums and Thane of Cawdor, the greatest is behind. Thanks for your pains. Do you not hope your children shall be kings when those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promise no less to them?
That trusted home might yet enkindle you unto the crown, besides the Thane of Cawdor. But 'tis strange, and oftentimes to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles, to betray us in deepest consequence.
Now, Macbeth, when he finds out he has been named Thane of Cawdor, and he says, the greatest is behind, meaning there's one more thing that was prophesied for him, and it's the greatest of all of them. It's to be King of Scotland. When he finds this out, he says to Banquo, well, now that I've, gotten this title, do you think that your children will become kings as well? And Banquo's response is very interesting. He says, 'tis strange, and oftentimes to win us to our harm, to hurt us, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, and win us with honest trifles to betray us in deepest consequence. Meaning, sometimes we are told the truth so that we can be lied to later on. That we are winning people's trust by being honest with them at the start, but that is not our long-term plan. Now, Macbeth is going to do one of his soliloquies, the aside that he makes, where he's thinking about what's going on with these prophecies. And just to kind of clear up what is happening in it, one of the things that Macbeth considers when he's told that he will become King of Scotland is that he may have to kill King Duncan to become king, that thought enters his mind. That is the suggestion whose horrid image doth unfixes his hair. But to consider this as well, if somebody says you might be king and the first place your mind goes is to murdering the king, you've probably thought about it before. So Macbeth is going to be very distracted while thinking through what he's just learned and what his plans are going to be. And he's going to be very distracted, and it's just going to look like he's very dumb and not paying attention to things. But really, he is worried about what he might do in the future.
Dozens a word, I pray.
So now everyone stepped aside.
Two truths are told as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. I thank you, gentlemen. This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair and make my seated heart knock in my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that function is smothered in surmise. Nothing is, but what is not.
Look how our path is track.
If chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir.
So I love this moment where Banquo's like, "Ooh, look, Macbeth's thinking really hard, and you can tell that it hurts him to do that." You'll hear me make fun of Macbeth for being dumb throughout this entire play, just so you know. He is very, very strong and brawny, but he's got no brains. But he does have this moment where he says, if chance will have me king, if fate has said I'm going to be king, then maybe I don't have to do anything to become king. If it's fated to happen, then maybe I could just sit back and wait for it to happen.
New honors come upon him, and our strange garments. Leave not to their mold, but with the aid of use.
Come what come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day.
Worthy Macbeth, we stay upon your leisure.
Ah, give me your favor. My dull brain was wrought with things forgotten. Kind gentlemen, your pains are registered where every day I turn the leaf to read them. Let us toward the king. Think upon what hath chanced, and at more time, the interim having waited, let us speak our free hearts each to other.
Very glad.
Till then, enough. Come, friends.
So you have a video summary here that you may watch. You can watch that, and then I want you to explain what you think Macbeth will do next and tell me why. Now, I do want to put this out there right now. Going and looking up what he's going to do next isn't fun for any of us. So what I want you to keep in mind is that this is a Shakespearean tragedy. Macbeth is a tragic hero, and a lot of people die in tragedies. So keep that in mind. And again, you can write something kind of crazy, but make sure you're explaining your reasoning for why and it makes sense with the text. So if you're unsure of where to go, you might think about the following parts. What do the witches say about him? What does he think about becoming king? What is his first thought? And what do you think he will do to get that position? And that is Act 1, Scene 3. I just love those witches so much, you guys. It's so great.